Thank you so much for your time. I watched this film, not really sure what I was going to get into, but I really enjoyed it. So,
Good.
full disclosure, I am a straight man, and but at the same time, I could still really appreciate all of the love and the care and like just it felt very like a lot of this. It's like De Palma meets John Waters in a way. So so very cool stuff, man. And because of which I truly appreciate your time. With Body Blow, you've described it as reclaiming the erotic thriller from a queer perspective, which I think is so unique and very cool. Like I loved watching the homages, kind of scattered throughout like little Easter eggs. What was the most important part of like balancing that homage with films like Body Heat or Basic Instinct while creating something distinctly modern because it still felt very modern, and then it also felt very unapologetically queer, which I thought was also I truly appreciated because nothing, and I can't stress this enough, nothing felt shoehorned in. Everything felt like had a purpose. Everything had thought and love, and there was like decision behind every choice, which I really thought was cool, Dean.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's fantastic to hear. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the inspiration, you're absolutely right. It came from my real kind of deep love of that kind of erotic thriller genre from the 90s, and that was kind of the time, I was growing up. But as a queer filmmaker, you kind of help but feel a little bit excluded from some of those narratives because, they are so heterocentric, and of course they're also so heavily focused around sex and sexuality, and the sexual energy is so crucial to driving the narrative. So that was just absolutely the starting point. And we had a little film festival of our own before we shot the film. So every Friday we were kind of watching another one of these films from the genre, and I think it just infused sort of all the decisions fairly organically. I think the cast, we were so lucky to have such an incredible cast of Australian actors. They approached the script with such kind of intelligence. I think the thing too is that you've really got to commit to the truth of something, even when it's extremely heightened. And so a lot of it was how do we bring the audience on Aiden and Cody's emotional journey and create that connection? They had an incredibly strong chemistry as well. Tom Rogers and Tim Pocock who play those characters. So it sort of evolved. Yeah, through our passion for bringing back the films that we loved as children, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Oddly enough, I'm starting to kind of like dig into those films as well, like just on my own private time. So like this was such a breath of fresh air just because looking back, there were so many that I missed. And like just to kind of like mix this into the shuffle, it felt very like it fit right in. Like it was so cool like to like watch something that, looking back on, felt so like dirty and like I almost shouldn't be watching it, and then like like this just felt like it was a hanging out with the boys. Like it was a good fun time at the cinema. And speaking of that, it has this neo noir aesthetic, like, and it draws from all of those films that we know and love. What guided your visual choices in creating this heightened but very lived in Sydney? Like, because you can see the city, and you can see that, where it like feels like home. Like it also feels very like, like you could shoot like a corner or shoot like an alley and it not really feel like lived in or very. Your film, there, every shot exudes value. It exudes like stretching the buck. And I thought that was a really cool decision on your part. And like you could tell again, everything was very deliberate. And I really appreciated that as a viewer.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a fairly low budget film, and when you're in that situation, you really need to look around you for production value that's kind of already there. We're very lucky in Sydney; we have a really beautiful city, and but at the same time, it's often sort of very glamorized. We see a very sort of pristine sort of version of Sydney, and of course, for this story, we needed to get under the surface into the real grit and the
Yeah.
dirt and the feeling of it. But we also still wanted the city to kind of, play as a character in the film and see some of those kinds of iconic shots. I mean, Darlinghurst and the Stonewall Hotel, that just looks so gothic kind of by itself. And really, when you bring in those really strong saturated colors, and the lighting choices, and then you kind of put the camera up on a crane and run a fog machine, kind of the city sort of does the rest. Stonewall Hotel is shot pretty much as it is. It's a really iconic venue in Sydney, and I guess too there's also a sort of darkness at the center of the film in the sense that it does deal with the tension between the police and the queer community, and again that comes out of the lived history and lived experiences of us as filmmakers and of the city itself. So it's kind of about leaning in very selectively to what's around you that's going to evoke the atmosphere that you need for the story.
Yeah, very well said. I didn't even think about some of that. It's really interesting to hear. I love getting this background information on films like this because, again, you can feel the love as a viewer. The film does blur those noir archetypes, with queer reinvention, the cop, the femme fatale, the underworld boss. How did you work together, like with the cast to make them feel like part of a almost like a new tradition or something that's just different entirely? Like it really turns the genre on its head, which but at the same time it still feels so natural.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You kind of need those archetypes to sort of put the story together and to kind of structure the audience's journey through it. But again, it's that challenge of kind of finding the truth. And I mean, you look at someone like Paul Capsis who plays, Fat Frankie. Paul has been. I mean, again, he has actually been a drag queen on the scene, and he would tell us these incredible stories from the 80s and the 90s, where he said, "I met Fat Frankie." He's like, I've met this woman. I know who she is. So again, that comes out of his connection with the gay scene in Sydney and Darlinghurst. Sasha Haller, who is, I think, just she's got such power, and she was so incredibly collaborative. But again, she grew up in the Darlinghurst area. As a teenager, she was actually hanging out in these clubs with these sorts of queens, who might have evil, intentions. And of course, Tim Pocock, as Aidan, brought a lot of himself to the film. This was the first time that he had played a queer character in a film, and he had quite recently actually come out as gay, and so
Oh wow.
yeah, I mean, actually, just kind of months before we cast him, actually, and he's put out an incredible book about growing up in a kind of Christian cult. So he's got a lot to bring Aiden in terms of feeling like he's got a foot in both camps, in terms of there being multiple layers to a person's identity. And so he really kind of latched onto that. So, I got to say, it was a really intense collaboration with a wonderful cast, and I think that's where a lot of the nuance comes from.
Yeah, I think that the cast was probably one of the things. I mean, obviously the film as a whole has this very unique look, but the cast itself felt very like it's just a real, like they all felt like they were almost like born to play some of these roles. Like Tim especially, which that's why it's kind of crazy for me to hear his backstory. I had no idea, but he not only starred but also contributed original score cues, which I think is that's exceptional. There's so many like layers to this film, and um it's kind of neat that you were able to weave, his personal history and his musicmanship into the film, to enrich it. And I just applaud you guys all for making that work. But can you talk a little bit about how you guys intertwine that and to help tell the story that you were, I guess, working on together?
Absolutely. Well, Tim Pocock was the first person I cast in Body Blow. And I'd, kind of like known him on and off, or certainly known his work for years. But I didn't quite understand at the time sort of how intense the connections actually were between him and the character. And I cast him way up the front, and we had a really long sort of time in the end before we ended up shooting it. So it gave us a lot of time to sort of gestate the ideas and for the character to grow in Tim's mind. And then at some point along the way, it suddenly dawned on me that Tim is this concert pianist.
Yeah.
I'm like, is there anything you can't do? And he ended up playing the piano piece at a little fundraiser that we held. And so I was like, oh, it'd be so great to, use that somehow. And then one day after we'd shot, out of the blue, he sent me this thing that he'd written. And I swear to God, it's like it came out of Aiden's head. I mean, and it's that opening piece and closing piece in the film, of course. Um, and it was just like I was like, holy crap, like, dude, that's amazing. This is going in the movie. And so all these sort of little pieces sort of started to kind of come out through the process of kind of working through, the journey of the actors. And again, Tom Rogers just brought a lot. There was a lot of a physical transformation that he underwent. We put him in the gym for weeks and weeks and weeks. Sasha brought such intellect and scrutiny. She's really hard on the process, which is exactly what you want. So yeah, again, just very, very fortunate to sort of have a meeting of the minds of these kind of brilliant actors who kind of went with the world and sort of could get on that vibe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a perfect ensemble. To wrap up, we could talk about this film all day long. It's such a fantastic film. It's such a fun ride. But ultimately, I guess I want to cap it off with, what do you hope audiences take away from this film? How do you expect them to react? And I guess that's really it. Like the larger statement of this film. What do you want to say?
Well, look, I think what you said earlier really resonated with me, in the sense that the fundamental idea is hopefully it's a good night out at the cinema, that it is an entertaining ride, and that hopefully the narrative is surprising, but not too surprising. So, it's a film that we primarily, I think, just were really focused on making an entertaining movie. But at the same time as that, and again, without sort of giving away any spoilers, I think the resolution of the film is where the true meaning, might reside. That people might respond to that. And I mean, the film is about, it's about disparate opposites kind of clashing, whether that's inside the same person or whether that's kind of out in this world. And fundamentally, Aiden's got to go on that journey of self-discovery, as we all do, regardless of our identities and our gender and all that kind of stuff. We've got to uncover the truth about who we really are, and that's something that it takes us our lifetimes to
Yeah.
to accomplish. So I think it goes into that area. But look, it's the world premiere this evening at Fantastic Fest of Body Blow, and like no one's really seen the film in terms of audiences, and I just cannot wait to see what people think. I have no idea what the reaction will ultimately be.
That's amazing, man. I know it will be great. I had such a fun time. I honestly can't wait to see the reaction because I know it will be a good one, Dean. Here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing, and you are doing just fine. You will continue to do just fine. And again, I am so stoked for you to see those smiling faces as they leave the cinema tonight.
Oh wow, Jesse, that's wonderful. I really appreciate that. I also cannot wait. It's a big night tonight at Fantastic Fest.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that's all I have, man. I truly appreciate your time. Like, sincerely, I really enjoyed this. I really can't wait for people to see it and start talking about it. The buzz is already alive. I could see it on social media. So yeah, kudos to you and team, man. Y'all did really well. And this is you're gonna have so much fun tonight. Go enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much, Jesse. Really appreciate that, and thanks for having me on. It's great to meet you.